Layla and her mother, Sidi, work together as morticians. Sidi aims to teach Layla, but when they uncover a corpse, Layla is disturbed by its appearance. Sidi reassures her and begins to wash the body. As they turn it, Layla is horrified to see what looks like whip marks on its back. Sidi reminds her to respect the dead, but suddenly, the corpse opens its eyes. During Mrs. Ida's grandson's circumcision ceremony, Sidi notices that Mrs. Ida seems anxious. After the festivities, Layla picks up Sidi and learns that she can also see omens. On their way home, they meet Sidi's son, Arif, whom Sidi encourages to find his own path before he leaves to help Rika with her rental. Later, while Sidi prays, she hears strange noises but sees nothing. A demonic entity then appears behind her, mimicking her prayers before disappearing. Layla startles Sidi by expressing her wish to learn makeup. When Sidi asks if Layla wants to be like her, Layla gets upset and goes to wash dishes. Sidi finds a rotten food packet and tells Layla to close the doors and keep everyone out. Confused, Layla asks where Sidi is going, but she doesn't reply. As Sidi opens the door, they hear an announcement about Mrs. Ida's death. Sidi rushes to Ida's house to learn the shocking details of her death and decides to wash her body herself. Meanwhile, Layla wakes to strange noises on the roof, and when she investigates, the roof suddenly collapses. Arif arrives home to find Layla in chaos. When Sidi returns, she collapses, and Layla and Arif help her inside. That night, Layla sees Sidi trying to burn something and asks why she's still awake. Sidi reveals blood-soaked clothes belonging to Ida and explains that everything must be burned after washing a corpse. Layla takes the bag to burn the remaining items and urges Sidi to rest. Upon entering, Sidi is horrified by her reflection in the mirror. Later, Layla lies on the bed, but when Sidi asks if she locked the door, Layla doesn't respond. Sidi turns around and is shocked to find Layla missing. Layla then returns and lies down next to Sidi, who apologizes for feeling responsible for Layla's struggles, explaining that everyone has their role in life before turning away to sleep. During the night, Sidi hears strange noises and is terrified by a demonic shadow approaching her. Before she can react, the entity chokes and kills her. The next morning, Layla wakes up to find her mother dead beside her, and her screams bring Arif in, who is equally shocked by their mother's lifeless body. Villagers soon gather at their houses. Tuti suggests washing Sidi's body, and Anya advises against delay. Outside, the chief asks Arif how their mother died. Arif explains to him that Layla said it was a hemorrhage since there were no wounds and no signs of anyone entering the room. As Layla prepares to wash her mother's body, she is horrified to see Sidi's eyes wide open. She urges her mother to accept her death and asks for permission to wash her. Layla closes her mother's eyes and shuts her own, remembering her. After a moment, Layla feels as if her mother is holding her hand, telling her that washing the deceased is an honorable task. Guided by Sidi's spirit, Layla washes the body, but when she finishes, Sidi's mouth unexpectedly opens. To Layla's horror, she finds a piece of barbed wire inside. Later, Sidi is buried, and the villagers offer their condolences to Layla and Arif before leaving. That evening, Anna visits Layla with condolence money and asks if they can combine the prayers for Mrs. Eda and Sidi. Layla agrees, but the neighbors are shocked to see blood on Sidi's bed. When they ask how Sidi died, Layla locks the door. As Arif checks his tools, Layla comments that he doesn't seem sad and notes that he even refused to wash their mother. He simply leaves with his toolbox. While washing her mother's bedsheet, Layla is startled to find another piece of barbed wire in the water, but it vanishes when she tries to grab it. Meanwhile, Sidi's friends speculate about the strange occurrences, questioning if Sidi and Ida's close friendship might explain their similar deaths. Terry expresses suspicion, wondering if they were cursed. When she accidentally cuts her finger, her blood lands on their photo. That night, as the village prays for Ida and Sidi, a demonic hand picks up a prayer book. Terry hears a demonic voice reciting prayers but sees no one. Suddenly, the spirits of Ida and Sidi whisper prayers in her ears, causing her to scream that she doesn't want to die. The chief tries to calm everyone, noting a power outage and suggesting they use candles to continue the prayers. As they light the candles, Layla sees the ghosts of her mother's friends among the villagers, which confuses and frightens her. She notices Anna's ghost, even though Anna is present, reciting prayers. Just then, Anna's ghost confronts Layla, and the lights suddenly return. When Layla returns home, she is startled to see her mother praying. As she approaches, the prayer gown falls to the floor. Scared, Layla picks it up but steps on a piece of barbed wire, causing her pain. After removing it from her foot, her mother's ghost appears. Meanwhile, Anna talks to her son Bimo, who has found a job outside the village. She gets frightened when she sees a ghost peeking from a room, but dismisses it when Bimo asks. After he leaves, Anna checks the room, and the wardrobe door opens on its own. Confused, she enters, but the door suddenly shuts. When she tries to open it, it's locked, but it opens again as she turns away. Suddenly, Layla is grabbed by demonic hands, and her screams prompt Bimo to rush in, only to find Anna vomiting blood. As he tries to enter, the door slams shut, but when he breaks in, he discovers Anna's dead mother. Later, the chief asks Arif about Layla, noting he called her without a response. Arif goes to find her, reminding her that she washed their mother's body alone the day before. Layla locks the door, insisting he wouldn't understand. Bimo arrives, pleading for Layla's help, but she remains silent. Meanwhile, Daraja, a police officer, tells the chief this is the third incident and questions whether anyone will report it. The chief explains that families refuse to report. Daraja asks to see the body, and when the chief asks Bimo for his opinion, Bimo insists it's not murder and wants to wait for Layla. As Layla hears Anna calling for help, she opens her eyes, only to be terrified by Anna's ghost. Arif arrives and asks what's wrong, but she stays quiet. He tells her he is at Bimo's house, where Daraja wants to check Anna's body, but Bimo insists on waiting for Layla. When Layla asks how Anna died, Arif explains that Bimo said she vomited blood before her death. At Bimo's house, she checks Anna's mouth for barbed wire, but finds nothing. As she starts washing Anna's body, Anna suddenly sits up and taps her stomach. Layla discovers a piece of barbed wire protruding from Anna's stomach and, terrified, pulls it out, causing Anna's corpse to collapse onto her. Shocked to see Anna's eyes open, Layla tries to close them, but they keep reopening, and Anna grabs her hand, asking for help. Later, as Anna's body is prepared for burial, the chief tells Terry that Daraja wants to ask her questions. He asks if she had any issues with Anna, but Terry insists she wasn't close to her and doesn't want to discuss it. The next day, as Bimo prepares to move, he tells Layla he saw something strange. Before her mother died, she called out the name Noor. He shows her childhood photos from a trip to the botanical garden and points out Noor. Layla asks where Noor is now, and Bimo explains that she left the village long ago, hinting at a past incident involving his late father and other husbands. Later, Terry approaches Layla, suggesting the deaths of Anna, Ida, and their mother seem suspicious. That night, Layla digs up Ida's grave and finds barbed wire protruding from her thighs. Terrified, she pulls it out and suddenly finds herself surrounded by advancing ghosts. In panic, she climbs out of the grave and runs away. The next morning, it's announced that someone disturbed Ida's grave, and villagers are asked to report their activities from the previous night. Later, Layla visits Ida's house to learn more about Noor and meets Tuti, who claims Noor is evil and ruined many marriages. Before Tuti can explain further, she hears a disturbing whisper and begins to scratch her face, horrifying Layla. When Tuti asks why Layla is there, Layla inquires about Noor, and Tuti mentions the disturbed grave, suggesting they leave. Arif finds a spade under Layla's bed just as she arrives and questions whether she dug up a grave. She explains that she needs to uncover why their mother kept Ida's death a secret. Although Arif suggests involving the police, Layla insists it's not their role, showing him the barbed wire she found in their mother's mouth and the other corpses, implying a curse. They then see Terry running away, and later she tells a woman that Ida, Sidi, and Anna died from a curse. This news spreads, prompting villagers to approach the chief, who advises them to stay calm. That night, Layla confronts Terry about her rumors regarding Noor. Terry defends herself, but Drajat intervenes, suggesting they report their concerns to him. When Layla questions what the police can do, Drajat reveals that Noor is dead and invites Layla to consult him instead of acting recklessly. After Drajat leaves, Layla confronts Terry again, but to her shock, Terry speaks in a demonic voice as the door slams shut. Possessed, Terry begs for help, claiming she was accused of stealing husband. Layla realizes that Terry is possessed by Noor's spirit, which shows her how the village women treated Noor. Noor insists she's innocent, but Layla harshly tells her she deserves to die and demands that she leave. Eventually, Noor exits Terry's body. Later that night, Layla is attacked in her sleep by a demonic shadow, which causes her to choke and seem to fade into death. The scene shifts to her body being prepared for burial, but she suddenly wakes up, realizing it was just a nightmare. Sneaking into Rika's house, Layla finds a broken tile and hidden photographs of her mother and friends, realizing with shock that Rika is Noor's daughter. Meanwhile, Tuti is attacked and killed by a demonic entity. When Layla visits Terry's house, she finds her praying and explains the connection to Noor. To her horror, Noor's ghost appears as Sidi and her friends, showing Layla their conversation where they accused Noor of seducing husbands. Just then, Layla learns that Tuti has died, and Noor insists they should not blame her for their sins. Layla then goes to wash Tuti's body and finds barbed wire in her eyes. As she tries to remove it, Tuti suddenly wakes up and sits up. Horrified, Layla watches barbed wire crawl into Tuti's arm and emerge from her mouth. Layla pulls it out, and at that moment, the ghosts of her mother and friends appear, pleading for help. Later, Draja asks Layla to open the door, but she is seen tied with barbed wire, struggling. When he breaks in, he finds her on the floor and brings her back to her senses, informing her that an autopsy is required and suspecting she may be hiding evidence under the guise of washing bodies. Layla accuses Rika of wrongdoing, revealing that she is Noor's daughter. She confronts Rika about her mother's actions, demanding to know what her mother did wrong. Rika tries to calm her, saying, "These are their sins, don't make them hers," before leaving. As Layla tries to stop her, other women become possessed one by one and begin to collapse. Then back to the past, showing Layla's mother and friends breaking into Rika's house and dragging her out to beat her. It's revealed that while Sidi and her friends tortured Noor, Terry was not with them. Frustrated, Rika screams for them to stop, reminding them they did the same to her mother years ago. She acknowledges her sin, but insists they all share the blame. One woman accuses Rika of being a killer like her mother, and the beating continues. Meanwhile, Sidi's spirit approaches Layla, urging her to stop the violence. Layla rushes to intervene, but the crowd turns on her and begins to beat her as well. Arif rushes in to save them, but a rod strikes him in the head, killing him. As Layla mourns her brother's death, the villagers disperse, leaving her in sorrow. Over time, Layla continues washing corpses and removes a pin from a dead body, signifying that she has now cursed the village.